Chargers center Bradley Bozeman surprisingly retired on Monday, meaning they will officially have a new center in 2026.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers for 10 seasons now, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. David, what do we got today?
Yeah, big surprise that Bradley Bozeman decided to retire from the NFL. So the Chargers will be looking for a new center. How are they going to address that big concern? Do they do it in free agency? Do they do it in the draft? It's one of the things we are going to talk about. And speaking of the draft, what are the Chargers going to do with that pick? Should they stand pat? Should they trade up? Should they trade back? Seems like all of those options are on the table. And I think for me, the Chargers wide receiver room is set, and I like what they have.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, whether the Chargers should pursue another wide receiver right now, especially since they've drafted 4 of them in the last 3 seasons. But let's start with the news of the day, David. News that I didn't necessarily see coming, even if I didn't necessarily see him in the plans for the Chargers in 2026. Bradley Bozeman announced that he is retiring. He said, after 8 seasons in the NFL, I'm ready for my next chapter. He said, the game moves on. Someone fills your spot. I'm just thankful God gave me the chance to take the ride on to the next chapter of life at the farm, which seems honestly very fitting for Bradley Bozeman. I could see him being a farmer out there for sure. But this is interesting, Dave, because obviously he didn't factor into the plans for 2026, right? It didn't seem like he was ever going to be a scheme fit for the new offense in Mike McDaniel. Felt like he was brought in to be a Greg Roman guy and run the Greg Roman offense because he had done it before. And it didn't work out. And, I was hoping that even if the Chargers cut him, he could latch on somewhere else, find a better fit, maybe goes to the Giants and joins back up with Greg Roman and can turn it around there. But at the end of the day, he is going to retire, which means not only do the Chargers kind of need a new starting center, but they'll need a backup center as well. Like, that is a pretty vacant position for them now, officially, with the retirement of Bradley Bozeman.
Yeah, the Chargers, I think they had a feeling that this might happen, and I think they handled things the right way. And yeah, I think everybody knew that Bradley Bozeman was not going to factor into the future plans. They just didn't know how it was going to happen. Was he going to get cut? Or was something else going to happen? And this was something that wasn't really something I was expecting. It definitely came out of the blue, but good for Bradley. He spent 8 years in the NFL, was extremely durable. I mean, say what you want about his quality of play the last few years, but when you play 16 plus games and 7 of your 8 seasons, it's kind of hard to beat that at one of the most physical positions in the NFL, right in the middle with 340, 350 pound guys that are trying to crush you on a down in and down out basis. For Bradley Bozeman, heck of a career. He made himself, a lot of money, generational wealth to take care of his family. He's done some great things off the field with his charities, taking care of people who are less fortunate. So, wish Bradley Bozeman all of the best, but the Chargers have a huge problem that they need to fix. And now there's absolutely no excuses because there's nobody there in that room really under contract. They have to do it, and they got to go big.
And Bradley Bozeman wasn't good enough. And that is one of the tough parts of this job, right? Is you have somebody on to do an interview with you, and you might have to be critical of that player, even if he's the best dude, even if he's the greatest guy in the locker room, even if his teammates love him and his coaches love him. We have to sit here and tell the truth and be fair about it. And I think we always were with Bradley Bozeman. But you're right. It doesn't give the Chargers kind of the out of bringing him back. He is officially gone now. And I think that probably is in large part because he wasn't going to be back with the Chargers. And Daniel Popper put out he was struggling with a back injury for a lot of last season, and you never know what people are going through, so maybe that plays a factor in it as well. But the fact of the matter is the Chargers, it's as black and white as it ever was. There's no kind of questioning what they're going to do or if they're going to make a change at that position. We know how important that was And I think the nice thing for Bradley Bozeman, I think in most Chargers fans' minds, even with the lows that he had, what he's always going to be remembered for is protecting his quarterback, Justin Herbert, when he took a dirty shot from a Saints player, and he was the first one in to make sure it wouldn't happen again. So hats off to Bradley Bozeman. Congratulations on a long NFL career. Best of luck to you in the next chapter. But David, it does leave the Chargers with some decisions to make, and it is buy or sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions. So let's start with this one here from Joe Alter Ego. It would be better, buy or sell, it would be better to draft a center of the future rather than sign Tyler Linderbaum. You buying or selling that?
I'm selling it. This is a really quick sell for me. The Chargers need a proven commodity at the center position. I want to hire a hardened gridiron like commander in the middle. I don't want to take a chance on somebody that could possibly be good, by selecting somebody in the draft. I think that's more of a lottery pick for me, and I just don't feel comfortable with a lottery pick when it comes to protecting Justin Herbert. Just don't think that that's good enough anymore. They have to emphatically address this with top end talent, with players that have been there, done that, and you have faith that can continue to do that for the next several seasons.
And that's the thing with Tyler Linderbaum, right? Like, it's not like you're getting a 2-year deal for someone that will solve it for you, but you're just putting a Band-Aid on, like, a stab wound or something. Like, this is something that would hopefully you make that deal, assuming that's going to fix that position for you for the next 4 seasons or 3+ seasons, right? Realistically. So he's younger, right? And so it's not really about an age thing for him. But I think more than anything, David, it's like the Chargers aren't in a rebuild right now, right?
No.
Like, they can't, they can't be willing to kind of let rookies learn on the job and be bad at the beginning and then kind of figure it out eventually. They don't really have time to develop a rookie center to play for them this year. They need a starting center who can come in right away. And like, just from, the big boards and the draft experts and stuff like that, it doesn't feel like it's a super loaded, like there's no Creed Humphrey in this draft. It's not a super deep center draft. According to Daniel Jeremiah, he doesn't have a center in his top 50 prospects. Pro Football Focus highest rated center is Connor Lew at 65, who is coming off of a torn ACL last year. And Dane Brugler's top rated center is Jake Slaughter, who he has as his 83rd overall prospect. Only 2 center prospects in the top 100 for Dane Brugler, who does the beat.
Not good.
Maybe there are times when you could find a legitimate bona fide starting center, right, in the draft and have them start for you right away. I don't know if that guy's in this draft, and if you do have a couple of guys you like, there's just no way they're going to guarantee you get them, especially if it is such a thin draft at the position and there isn't consensus necessarily on who the top guy is. But I think to this point, Eric Hansen here says buy or sell. The Chargers need at least 2 starting O-linemen in the draft. David, I'm selling that the same way I'm selling the Chargers center position. I just don't think you can go into the draft still needing 2 starters.
Absolutely not. The Chargers, with the cut of Bradley Bozeman, now have north of $90 million in cap space. I want them to use most of that to improve the offensive line. And when they get to the draft, of course, I do still want them to grab another player in the draft on the offensive line because they need top-end talent and they need back-end talent. I mean, we've talked about it. There's a lot of spaces that are up for grabs and just quite frankly need to be improved. And they need, I think, a little bit of a higher pick than a 6th or 7th round pick to go in the offensive line. I'm not saying I want to use my first overall pick. I'm not saying I'm against it if the right player is there, but I do want somebody in that room that you feel like has the chops to be able to play right now, but might need a little more time and development there. I think you just need that type of player while also making sure that the guys that are on the starting line are guys that are proven and can get it done and can provide that protection right now.
Yeah, and like, at least, as far as guards go, like, there is a little bit more as far as, guards that are ranked in the top 100. Brugler has 7 guards in his top 100, meaning basically day 1 and 2 picks. PFF has 7 interior offensive linemen total in their top 100 picks, and we just talked about only 2 of those are offensive linemen or are centers, so the rest of them are guards. But I think the hard thing is like, there's probably only 1 guard in the first round, that is a for sure starter for you. That being said, like, if you can fill 2 of your spots, because right now you have Zion Johnson, a free agent, Bradley Bozeman, who's retired, and Mekhi Becton, who's going to get cut. You have 3 spots that you have to fill. Now, bring back Zion could fill one of those. Now you still have 2 starting spots to fill. And in that scenario, I need them to sign at least 1 more, high above average level starter. And then if you have to go into the draft needing one starter, or you sign one maybe bounce back candidate to play right guard in this scenario, right? You find a center in free agency, you bring back Zion Johnson, maybe you find a low end bargain bin type of right guard who could still potentially be an upgrade over Mekhi Becton, but also then you draft a guard, right? And those two guys can battle it out for the starting spot in training camp and all of that. That would be my ideal thing. But relying on two rookies, like you can hide one rookie potentially on this offensive line. It's a lot harder to hide two of them. And we saw that what happens, when you're trying to hide multiple offensive linemen. But that is going to wrap things up for this segment. But we do have much more to get into, including if this will be the year that Joe Ortiz trades back. I think it very much could be. We're getting into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great, and they're #1 rated by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease, and it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches, and variety. It's the spice of life, and they have over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality, with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and, the best part, free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. David, let's get into some more buy or sells here. And one of the things we haven't talked as much about is the Chargers draft strategy. And we're going to hear more about that tomorrow because Joe Ortiz is going to be talking at the Combine, or today as you guys are hearing this. And we'll be talking, on tomorrow's show about what he says at that press conference. But for today, we don't know what they're going to do yet. But the one thing that makes things interesting is the fact that they're at pick 22 and they only have potentially projected 6 picks in this draft, which means there's a lot of different ways that they could go with the 22nd overall pick. And there's a lot of questions about it in buy or sells, including this one from Chris Saiz, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers' main focus in the draft should be to trade back regardless of who's there at 22 or regardless of who they get in free agency. What do you think?
Yeah, you're never going to have, nor should you ever have a predetermined plan on what you're going to do in the draft. You have to let the draft come to you. So I am going to sell that. You have to be prepared for every possible scenario because every single draft, year in and year out, there are players that fall down the draft that you don't expect. And you have to be prepared to be able to take those players. And for as much as we've talked about Joe Ortiz making trades, the only trade that he's actually made is to trade up. So he has never actually traded back so far with the Chargers. So that's not something that we have actually seen, but he's talked about it many times about how he wants to add more picks and get more ammunition, but we haven't really seen him actually do it.
We haven't, and the only reason that's interesting is during his time with the Ravens, especially, in the recent years, before he left them, they were trading back all the time, and they were one of the more active, teams as far as trading back in the entire league. So a little bit interesting, that the only draft moves have been for trading up for a McConkey, trading up for, an Arande Gadsden last season. So they have moved around, but they haven't moved back, which is what we're talking about here. And I do think there's a very real chance this is the year that they do it, right? And I think especially when you're at pick 22, I thought it could have happened last year. They ended up feeling like Omarion Hampton, fell into their lap and was a guy that they couldn't pass up. And I would agree with that, right? Like if that guy is there, if there's a guy that you can't pass up there, take that guy. If he's going to be a bona fide, Pro Bowl level, above average starting level for you for a long time and has a legitimate bona fide first round pick grade. In a draft that doesn't feel like it has a lot of those bona fide first round grades on these guys, I think it's a prime draft to trade back if that main guy isn't there, because your biggest needs probably aren't going to necessarily match up with the value that's available at your pick, right? When you're talking about in the trenches, like if you don't get a, Ioane or Venga and Ioane, then like there probably isn't going to be an offensive lineman that's worth taking there. If if you're talking about the defensive tackles, there's a lot of run stuffers. Maybe that's not, valuable enough to take them with the 22nd overall pick, and you'd be better off waiting, trading back a little bit. Because the thing is the more you wait, the less of a premium you're going to get on that pick.
Yeah.
Like last year, the Falcons traded away a future first-round pick and their second-round pick, right, to go get James Pierce. Obviously, that's an issue for a lot of different reasons now. But either way, like, teams will do some crazy things at time. Like, if you can land yourself a top 100 pick in this draft class, right, I think you do it. Like, unless that one guy is there that you just can't pass up. And obviously, if that happens, so be it. Like, they should take that guy if he falls in your app, like a Derwin James has in the past for them, right?
Yeah.
Let's get to this one here from Roberto Flores, who says, since the Chargers got a 6th-round comp pick, they will stay at pick 22 instead of trading out. David, are you buying or selling that now that they have that extra pick, they will be staying with that 22nd overall pick?
Yeah, I'm selling it. I don't think getting an extra 6th-round pick has any bearing on what they're going to do in the first round. Is it great to get another pick, to get more ammunition for a general manager that has proven the last few years to get tremendous value in the late rounds? Absolutely it is. It's great. I think you feel wonderful about that, that he gets another crack at it. His team gets another crack at finding another late round steal, another late round contributor. But, the value of these picks are so great, greatly different that I just don't feel like they have any impact on what they will do with the 1st-round pick.
The other thing is, man, takes two to tango, right? Like, the offer has to come in. There has to be a player. Like, that's the thing about having a player there they can't pass up on. Like, for you to be able to trade back, you have to have a player at your pick that another team can't afford to pass up on, right? Or another a player that's still there that maybe somebody right after you is going to pick if that team doesn't trade up for him, right? And that's the paranoia you're trying to drive up the bargain with during that time of the season. So the right partner has to come into shape as well. Like, you have to find a person who's willing to, trade a premium, because you are potentially trading back into the first round or trading from the back of the first round to the low 20s. You're only going to get that premium in the first round. You can trade back from your other picks, and maybe you'll add another, round 6 pick. Maybe you'll add, a 7th-round pick or a pick swap later on in the draft. But if you want to land yourself another, premier day 1 or day 2 pick, that's probably going to only come by trading down in the first round. So, yeah, I think having that extra pick doesn't make you feel like, man, I only have 5 picks. I really need some more picks. But I don't think it will have a huge sway if the right deal comes along for them to find a trade partner in the first round, especially if the options that they have there aren't at a position of need or don't necessarily fit the value of where they're going to have to take them with the 22nd overall pick. Because guess what? There might not be 22 first-round grades on the players that
we've
they
heard
have
that
so
before
far this year. I mean, I'd say very rarely are you seeing, 25 plus first round get grades in any draft class. The Chargers are picking 22. Last year, they felt like Omarion Hampton was kind of the only guy that fit that fell to them, and he fell to him. This year, we don't know how it's all going to play out. But let's get to this one from Benny Forsyth, who says, buy or sell, Chargers go with a defensive player for the first time in 8 years since Jerry Tillery in 2019. 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. This will be year 8, right? If they don't do it, it'll be 8 years in a row, or 8 years since they last took a defensive player. And David, I'm buying this. I think there's a very good chance the Chargers go offense in round 1 this year for the first time since the he who shall not be named.
Yeah, I mean, go defense. Yeah.
Go defense, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to buy it as well. And I'm going to buy it because they have a new defensive coordinator. And I think they need to arm him with a blue chip talent in the draft. I feel like, kind of last year it was roles reversed. Like you felt like you felt really good about what Jesse Minter was going to be able to do with lesser talent. And I don't know how you could be as confident with Chris O'Leary, being in the same situation, because this is the first time that, that he's done it at the NFL level, and he has, very limited coordinator experience. So getting him the pass rush and free agency and getting him a blue chip prospect in the draft to really kind of, give him all of the ammunition he could need to succeed, while also having a lot of confidence in what Mike McDaniel is going to be able to do on the offensive side. I think that confidence just shifts from, Jesse Minter on defense last year to Mike McDaniel on offense this year. So giving Chris O'Leary more help, I think, is a great idea.
Agreed with you. And like, honestly, man, like, even if it was Jesse Minter, I'd probably be like, fine, give this man something to work with for once, I mean, the last 2 years, your first and second round picks have both been on offense, right?
Yeah.
Even before, that when they were still taking offensive players, since Jerry Tillery. But at the same time, I think for what the Chargers need. And I think, if we're buying or selling after interior offensive line, the Chargers' 3 next biggest needs are all on defense. I would be buying that in a big way. So I just think that when you're talking about, because like the thing is, obviously if there's a blue chip talent there, you go get them, especially on the defensive side. The problem is like you just don't know if there's going to be a blue chip talent there. But what you do know is the Chargers need to invest more into the defensive side anyways, no matter what that looks like. They can't keep cheaping out and just assuming that side of the ball is just going to be able to keep way outplaying like the sum of its parts. It's unsustainable in my opinion, especially with a new defensive coordinator. But I just think it's far more likely that there's going to be an edge rusher or a defensive tackle that is at 22. They're going to, that feels like is actually worth it much more than there is going to be an interior offensive line that feels like it's going to be worth it at pick 22. And if it's Vanga that's there, run up to the podium and take him because he would be worthy of it. But there's only one of him in this draft class. And he's the only one that feels like he'd be worth it. Now, there are a couple defensive tackles and edge rushers you could probably say would be worth that pick. But we still have more to get into, including with all the draft needs. Do the Chargers actually need a wide receiver? We're going to get into that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. They can basically cover the entire bucket list of going to an NBA Finals list just by betting on a future right now in the NBA. So if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures, especially this time of the year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. So the big favorite right now to win the whole thing is Oklahoma City Thunder, but I do think there are some very interesting plus 1,100 San Antonio Spurs, plus 1,100 Boston Celtics. Like if the Thunder don't win, there's a big option. And just by those teams don't even have to win. Just by entering gives you a chance at the NBA Finals sweepstakes. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. David, we still have more to get into on this buy or sell Tuesday, and thank you to all of the everydayers who contributed and always contribute on these shows to, let us be able to do it because they are our favorite shows of the week. Getting you guys involved and hearing what you want to talk about is always great. And you guys always come through for us, straight up, right? So let's get to this next one that we have here, which I think is a good one from the Silver-Tongued Devil. Buy or sell, the Chargers don't need another wide receiver. David, are you buying or selling that?
I'm going to buy it. I think the Chargers have a lot of the skill sets that you want out of your wide receiver room. They have someone who's quick, who has great hands that can get open quickly with a lad McConkey. They have a guy that can stretch the field with a KLS, even though he didn't get a lot of opportunities last year. You have a couple of different possession type of receivers with Trey Harris, and we'll see, what happens with Keenan Allen if they decide to bring him back. And you have a guy that can really create with the ball in his hands with the yards after catch, and a guy who has been able to, improve his contested catch ability with Quentin Johnston. So, I know it's not something you always want him to be doing it as Dan is rolling his eyes, but
I'm not rolling my eyes. I'm like, better doesn't mean he's that guy, because I would say the one thing this wide receiver room doesn't have is a go-getter. Like, they don't have a ball getter on the roster right now. That's proven.
I think KLS can do some of that stuff, when given the opportunity. We didn't really get to see it a whole lot, but I think that there are elements in this Chargers wide receiver room that you really like, and I think the skill sets, they mesh well together, especially considering who is going to be moving the pieces around the board.
The other thing is are you including Keenan Allen in that wide receiver group, or are you saying even without Keenan Allen that it's going to be good, right? Because that is kind of the domino that still hasn't fallen yet. This is what I would say. I don't think the Chargers need another wide receiver. Like I said earlier in the show, they've taken 3 wide receivers over the last 2 drafts. And they've taken 4 wide receivers over the last 3 years in the draft. 1 first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. They've invested in it. We also know they love drafting wide receivers, so there's still a good chance they do it. What they don't have proven on their team right now is a field stretcher, a guy that can win outside the numbers on deep balls consistently. They don't have a guy that's proven they can do that consistently. And they don't have just a go-getter, like a jump ball guy, a Mike Williams type of guy that you can throw to in whatever situation when nobody's open and just hope they can come down with it. they could have guys that can do those things, right? And I mean, the thing is, like, about even like a KOS, even Trey Harris has some, the spectacular acrobatic catches in his past. Those guys aren't the size of those bigger guys, right? Like the Chargers don't have it. Like once you lose Keenan Allen, you're basically losing your biggest receiver. Like Quentin Johnston's big, but he doesn't play big. He's not an above the rim type of player. And trying to use Quentin Johnston as above the rim type of player is wrong, right? Like that's the reason you're excited about Mike McDaniels, is because you're hoping that's not the way they tried to use him this year. So I don't think they need a wide receiver. I don't think it's a desperate need or anything. But even with those guys and how they played last year, nobody's looking at the 2025 Chargers and being like, that was an elite wide receiver core. They're just not. Nobody's saying that, right? So not getting one just relies on a bunch of guys taking another leap. It means Quentin Johnston gets better. It means Ladd McConkey, finds his form again. It means that Trey Harris is taking a leap. It means KLS is going, having a Justin Boigby type of leap, which is hard to, because I mean, we're talking about 2 catches last year. So like, can you have that kind of leap? Sure, it can happen. But that's putting a lot of eggs in the basket of, big time progression from this wide receiver core. But let's talk about 2 of the guys we know are going to be involved. Big Geo says buy or sell Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston. Both will have over 1,000 receiving yards in 2026. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to sell it for a lot of the reasons that you just explained. And I think it's just guys like Trey Harris and KLS getting more involved in the offense and getting more opportunities in this offense that they did not really get last year. I think Trey Harris, they took most of the season to try to figure out what he was capable of doing and then earning that trust and then getting more of those opportunities. I think in year 2, you can feel a lot more confident about what he's capable of doing and get him more involved right away. Same thing with KLS. He has the speed. You have a coordinator that loves speed, that has shown that he can use speed to great effectiveness. So I think with that being said, that's going to be the reason why QJ and Ladd do not both eclipse 1,000 yards. Although I will say, if he does, I think that might be something for Quentin Johnston particularly. It would be something where you'd have to try to warrant thinking about another contract because, back-to-back 8 touchdown seasons for him, leading the team in receiving touchdowns. I think that's the last thing that every receiver wants to do. Put that feather in their cap is eclipse 1,000 yards receiving.
Sure, and like it's not like he's a cavernous ways away from that, right? Like we just saw him put up over 700 this year. Obviously he's gotten close before, but at the same time, like look at the best guy as far as yards after the catch that has been in a Mike Shanahan system. Who is that? It's Deebo Samuel, right? Yep. Obviously, I'm not expecting Quentin Johnston to have the rushing yards or play running back. We're not doing that show again. We did do that show at one point. But what I would say though is how many 1,000-yard seasons, just off the top of your head, David, how many 1,000-yard seasons do you think Deebo Samuel has?
1 or 2.
He has 1, right?
Yeah.
That's the best yak guy in the last 10 years, right? Something along those lines, probably. He has 1 of those, right? And that's the cream of the crop. Like, I don't think that Quentin Johnston has to have 1,000 yards for this to be a really good season for him, right? Like, I think it's more just about the targets that he is getting used more efficiently and having him be a major factor that teams have to think about. And I think when you're sending him down the sideline on go routes, I just don't think teams have to overly prepare for that going into that matchup. I just don't. He's better at that stuff. He's not that guy, and you shouldn't try to use him as that guy. That being said, we have seen 2,000-yard receivers, right, in a Mike McDaniel offense. 2023, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill both went for over 1,000 yards. Tyreek Hill went from almost 1,900 yards.
Yeah, we'll say well over.
Yeah, well over. And, Tua led the league in passing that year. The difference is, though, is their third leading receiver on that team was Durham Smythe, who had 366 yards as a tight end. Yeah. So, that's it. If the third option for the Chargers is only getting 300 yards, it just doesn't seem like that calculates with the weapons that the Chargers currently have. Like, they just have more mouths to feed, and I think that it's going to be hard. And nobody on their team is going for 1,900 yards either, so that, is a difference as well. I would lock in Ladd McConkey hitting 1,000 this year. I don't think Quentin Johnston's going to get to 1,000, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be worse, and that's not the reason he's doing it, right? Because he's steadily progressed in his 3 seasons, and I think I'm more excited about Quentin Johnston right now than I ever have been. But maybe that's a bonus show later on in the week, David. A little show notes behind the scene. Maybe QJ's 5th-year option is something we can do for a bonus show later on in the week. Let's do a quick one here. A subject we've touched on a little bit from Larry Bird. Buy or sell, the Chargers need to move on from Keenan in order to get the best out of Ladd and the offense as a whole. We've touched on it, David. Let's touch on it one more time before we get out of here.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it. I don't think it's required that Keenan moves on. I just think that there needs to be a priority on what the roles are. Ladd needs to be the focal point, and Keenan just needs to make sure that he's okay with accepting the fact that he's not going to have those 8 to 10 catch games any longer.
For True Media, most third down conversions, first downs on third downs of anyone in the league by 5 last year. 29, the next closest was 24. Keenan Allen's presence unequivocally affected Ladd McConkey. But it's not like losing Keenan Allen transfers those 700 receiving yards over to Ladd McConkey either, right?
Yeah.
What I don't think would be let happen under Mike McDaniel is for Keenan Allen to lead this team in targets if he was to come back. What I also don't know is if Mike McDaniel sees a vision of this offense that has Keenan Allen involved with it, right? And he is a free agent, so they have to want to bring him back. You're trying to win right now. I want the younger receivers to develop, and they need to do it, and the best way to do it is to play. But it's going to be very hard to argue to me that the Chargers don't have a better chance of winning in 2026, development be damned, than with Keenan Allen on this team. And I still don't think I'm at that point yet. So that's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you're back tomorrow because Joe Ortiz is speaking for the first time in a while at the NFL Scouting Combine. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say and to bring it back and talk with you guys about it. So to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also find the show to make sure that you never miss it. Go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. Listen wherever you get your podcast from, and if you want a little bit more than that, you can get that now with the Locked On Everydayer Club, where you can pay $5 a month and get an ad-free audio version of the podcast. You can find out more about that in the show notes, and also get exclusive access to the Locked On Chargers Discord channel. So a lot going on. Excited to hear what Joe Ortiz has from us. You know, it's been a while. Probably going to talk about the Bradley Bozeman retirement and how they plan on filling that role as well, but I'm excited to hear it. I'm excited to see you guys tomorrow, but until then, take it easy and go Bolts.